The story kicks off with climbers Becky, Hunter, and Dan, Becky's husband, on an intense adventure. As they scale a towering height, Dan tries to fix a hook near an eagle's nest. But the eagle swoops in, startling him. Despite his desperate attempts to grab hold of the rocks, the hook slips, and Dan plummets down the height. Becky, consumed by grief almost a year after Dan's death, sits in a dimly lit bar, clutching her phone. With trembling hands, she dials Dan's number, hoping against hope that he'll somehow answer. When the voicemail picks up, her voice cracks as she says,
"Miss you."
Outside the bar, her father waits, concerned. When she finally steps out, he gently tells her to move on from him, but Becky, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and defiance, shakes her head. She asks him to leave, turning away. Becky wept uncontrollably as she called Dan's number again and again, her tears soaking the phone. Desperate and consumed by grief, she reached for a bottle of painkillers, ready to end it all. Just as she was about to take the pills, Hunter appeared on the door. She proposed a climb up the B6070V tower, but Becky, still broken, cried and refused. The next day, as she prepared to face another day, she noticed his cremated remains. She paused, looking at it, and told Hunter,
"If you're scared of dying, don't be afraid to live."
As they started their journey, Becky casually checked Hunter's phone and discovered that Hunter had a boyfriend. Stopping to dine at a roadside restaurant. From the window, Becky noticed the looming presence of the tower. It was the tallest structure she had ever seen. Next day, Becky felt Dan's hands gently resting on her hips. She jolted awake, realizing it was just a dream. Her eyes immediately drawn to his box of ashes. Shaken, she stepped outside, joining in with Hunter. They set off toward the tower. Hunter recorded every moment of their journey. As they recorded, narrowly avoiding a tragic accident, they drove towards the structure and ended up to a locked gate. The sign didn't allow trespassing. They started walking towards the tower from there on. On their way, they saw vultures feeding on a carcass of a sheep. As it turns out, the sheep was not dead. Hunter clicked a photo of it and posted online to gain more likes. They reached the tower. It was enormous, looming above them. Hunter kept recording, explaining the tower and how they'll peruse the height. Becky hesitated, saying she couldn't do it, but Hunter encouraged her, reminding her of how Hunter herself had overcome Dan's death. Determined, Becky agreed, saying she could handle it. They moved closer, and Hunter began the climb, followed by Becky, gathering her courage with every step. The towers was rusty and shaky. As Becky climbed, one of the steps suddenly broke, sending a jolt of fear through her. But she didn't stop. The tower wasn't fit for any kind of adventure. After some time, Becky asked for a break. Hunter agreed, passing her a bottle of water. After catching their breath, they continued, pressing on up the rusted structure. Becky was scared of the view, as it has been a long time since she had climbed. Becky began climbing again, her nerves frayed by the dizzying height, while Hunter seemed to be enjoying the thrill. Shaking, Becky tried to focus, but the sheer drop beneath her made it almost impossible. Becky sang kids' rhymes to calm her nerves. As they maneuvered between two massive discs, Hunter pulled her up, but just as Becky moved past, one of the bolts holding the ladder in place began to loosen. The ladder shook violently, sending a wave of panic through Becky. She yelled at Hunter, who merely shrugged off her fear. The bolt finally dislodged, and Becky heard a faint clink as it fell, unsure of what it was. Hunter finally reached the top, taking in the breathtaking view with a mix of awe and triumph. Becky, though still shaky, managed to follow her. As she reached the top, she grasped Hunter's hand for support. The loose bolt left the ladder barely hanging on, but they had made it. Together, they shouted in exhilaration, clicked selfies, and soaked in the adrenaline rush. The drone circled above, capturing their victory from every angle. Hunter handed Becky the remote, suggesting she get a shot of herself hanging by one hand, pushing the thrill to its limit. Even Becky tried the same. Just when she was about to lose the grip, she came up, laughing with Hunter. She then took out Dan's cremation ashes, sharing a word to him eternally, and pouring his ashes. Her words brought tears to Hunter's eyes. It was time to go back. Becky stepped onto the ladder, but screws gave way, and it detached, leaving her dangling in midair. Becky grabbed the pole just in time, preventing their fall, while the ladders below crashed down. Hunter quickly wrapped the rope and pulled with her entire strength, saving her. Overwhelmed by the close call, they couldn't help but laugh, relieved to still be alive. But as they looked down with no ladder, it was daunting. Now stranded at the top with no way down, panic began to set in. Becky started to lose her cool, but Hunter managed to calm her. Becky then spotted an emergency box containing a binocular and a flare gun. Looking down, Becky noticed her bag stuck on the disc below. Hunter suggested that someone might call the police by sound of ladders falling. Suddenly, Hunter noticed a deep wound on Becky's leg and quickly tied it with her shirt to stop the bleeding. Becky then took a pee, holding Hunter's hands. They then settled down, hoping for help to arrive. Using binoculars, she then realized that there might be signal down there which can get them help somehow. She typed the message. They thought of tying the phone with a rope and sending it downward to get signal and eventually receive help, but all her efforts were in vain as it failed to post. Frustrated, they considered throwing it down inside a shoe, padded with her socks and bra to keep it safe, but no help arrived. After a while, they spotted a man below, but their broken phone made it impossible to call out to him. Desperate, Becky threw her shoe to get his attention, but it went unnoticed, and the man continued walking away. Becky fired the flare, and finally, the man noticed. They watched through the binoculars as he spotted the two girls stranded at the top, bringing a wave of relief. But instead of helping, they stole their car and drove away, leaving them stranded. In the middle of the night, Becky's curiosity was piqued when she noticed 143 written on her heel. At dawn, Hunter confessed she had an affair with Dan, shattering Becky. Overcome with guilt and anger, Becky blamed herself for their dire situation and, in a moment of despair, removed her wedding ring. Hunter suggested they climb down using the rope to retrieve the bag from the disc, but when she couldn't reach the bag, she had to hang by one hand. Swinging herself, she finally landed on the disc, only to realize the rest of the ladders were broken too. She grabbed the bag, but now she was stranded, unable to reach the rope to climb back up. Becky hung the bag on her selfie stick and managed to hook it to the rope. Gathering her courage, she lunged and grabbed hold of the rope. As she climbed, just as she was about to reach the ladder, she lost her grip and fell to the bottom, injuring her hand. She called out to Hunter, asking to be pulled up. With every ounce of strength, Becky pulled the rope, eventually bringing Hunter back up, but the effort left Hunter's hands severely injured. Becky drank some water and attached a help note to the drone, hoping it would reach someone. Unfortunately, the drone didn't get far, and they had to retrieve it. That night, Becky woke up in a panic, realizing Hunter was missing. Suddenly, vultures began attacking her. Terrified, she turned around to find her friend being eaten by the vultures, but then she jolted awake. It was just a nightmare. The next day, after drinking some water, Becky decided to charge the drone using the light above them. Despite her extreme pain, she climbed up to the bulb, only to find the socket too short to reach. In a desperate move, she inserted her ring into the socket, and the drone began charging. She waited there, with her hands dangling. The vultures started attacking her. The drone was about to be charged. She somehow managed and completely charged the drone. She descended from the pole and ended up puking. In the evening, she was feeling weak and sleepy. Hunter kept her awake. She finally flew the drone towards the hotel. As it was about to reach, it was crushed by a truck. Their last hope was dead. The vulture sat on the pole. As Becky was feeling sleepy, Hunter told her to stay awake or vultures might eat her up, smelling her wound. Hunter suggested to eat something, but there was nothing to eat. As she asked for another shoe to send a message, she told, "There's no shoe because she had already died, because she couldn't catch the bag." All this while, she was just hallucinating about her, being close and talking. She looked down to see her dead and vultures eating her dead flesh. She couldn't bear her death, so her mind made her hallucinate. She cried, feeling helpless and hopeless. After a while, storm came in. She looked at the old memories. She recorded her own video apologizing to her dad. Just when a lightning stroked, she was lying faint, just when a vulture showed up. As it started eating from her wound, she held its neck, eventually killing it. She then started eating the dead vulture in order to survive. Tied her hair. She then decided to go down, grappling the hook on the ladder, and going down. She landed on the disc, scared away the vulture feeding on Hunter's dead body. She then took her shoe, filling it with her phone, and then shoved the shoe into Hunter's body and rolled the corpse down the disc. The disc went loose. It was dangling, and now she was in a greater danger. At night, his father drove towards the tower. The police has already arrived. When he approached, he was disheartened to see them recovering her body. But actually, they finally met and went home together. Thanks for hearing this overwhelming story, hope you all liked it. It really takes a lot of efforts to bring this content for you all, so make sure to subscribe and like the video. It means a lot to us.